Wind howls across the Pacific. A lonely island appears through the clouds. Hundreds of massive stone faces staring silently across the land. Just giants of stone carved centuries ago. Each statue weighs dozens of tons. Yet this tiny island, one of the most isolated places on Earth, somehow built nearly 900 of them. But here's the part that keeps scientists awake at night. The people who created them almost disappeared. How did they move these impossible monuments? And what terrible truth about Easter Island has scientists only just discovered? Tonight we uncover the evidence. Wind screams across an empty ocean. A helicopter camera drifts over a tiny island lost in the endless blue of the Pacific. No cities, no crowds, just grass, volcanic rock, and silence. The camera tilts down. Hundreds of enormous a tiny population living among hundreds of giant monuments, and that raised a terrifying question. Where did everyone else go? To understand the mystery, you have to imagine Rapa Nui centuries ago, before the silence, before the ruins, before the statues were buried by time. Back then, the island was alive. Palm forests stretched across the land. Birds filled the skies, fishing canoes crowded the shores, and the people of Rapa Nui were masters of survival. They farmed sweet potatoes, they fished the deep ocean, they built villages along the coast. And then something extraordinary began to happen. Around the 13th century, the islanders started carving stone, not small statues, not decorative monuments, but giants. Some Moai stood 33 feet tall, weighing 90 tons. One unfinished statue still lying in a quarry would have reached 70 feet and nearly 300 tons. That's heavier than a Boeing 737. Imagine trying to move that without machines, without metal tools, without wheels, just ropes, stone tools, and human strength. So why build them? Who were they meant to represent? And more importantly, how did they move them? Because the statues didn't stay where they were carved. They were transported miles across the island, and no one knew how, for centuries. The key lies inside a volcano, on the northeastern side of the island, a crater called Rano Raraku. This is where nearly every Moai was carved. Hundreds of statues still lie here today, some still attached to the rock, like frozen ghosts of a lost civilization. Most of the statues were carved from volcanic tough compressed ash from ancient eruptions, soft enough to shape with stone tools, but strong enough to survive centuries. After carving them, the islanders faced an impossible challenge, moving them across rough terrain, across miles of volcanic ground, without breaking them, without modern technology. For decades, archaeologists believed this was impossible, which is why some people turned to stranger explanations. Aliens, lost advanced civilizations, supernatural forces. But the truth was far more fascinating and far more human. In the 1980s, archaeologists decided to test a theory. Instead of dragging the statues, what if they were walked? They built a replica statue weighing 10 tons, then tied ropes around it. Teams stood on each side, pulling the ropes back and forth. The statue rocked side to side, like a giant stone person walking forward. Later experiments moved a full-sized replica 330 feet this way. Ancient Rapa Nui legends made sense. The islanders said the statues walked with magic, but the magic was actually clever engineering, and this discovery shattered the alien theory forever. The Moai were not built by extraterrestrials. They were built by people, brilliant people. But that only deepened the mystery, because the island once supported up to 17,500 inhabitants during its peak, more than enough to build the statues. So why did the population collapse? For years, scientists believed the islanders destroyed their own home. They cut down forests, overused the land, triggered famine, then war, cannibalism, civilization collapse. It became a famous warning story of ecological disaster. But modern research began uncovering cracks in that narrative, because evidence suggested something else entirely, something far more disturbing. Recent studies show the Rapa Nui people were actually skilled agricultural engineers. They fertilized soil using volcanic rock. They carefully managed crops. They relied heavily on seafood. They survived here for centuries. Their civilization did not collapse overnight. In fact, the population remained stable until outsiders arrived. Then, everything changed. In the 1800s, slave raids from South America struck the island. Hundreds of islanders were kidnapped, taken away, never to return. Those who survived were forced into labor camps. But the raids weren't the worst part, because European ships brought something invisible, infections the islanders had never encountered and had no immunity against. Within decades, the population collapsed, from thousands to barely a few hundred survivors, an entire civilization almost erased, leaving behind only the silent witnesses, the Moai, watching the land, watching the ocean, watching history forget. Today, those statues still stand, hundreds of stone faces gazing across the island, not as monuments to mystery, but as reminders of a brilliant culture, a tragic history, and a truth that took centuries to uncover. Because sometimes the real mystery is not how civilizations rise, but how easily they disappear.